Hello. How's everyone doing? I hope they're doing well, because this time of season is a little rough on a lot of people, and it would be really sad if you weren't. But, you know, maybe making some cookies or something will help. So, that's what we're gonna do today. We got, it's the base recipe is chocolate chip. You can kind of put whatever you want into it. I learned the fun way. How much of the chips you put in kind of does a thing, but whatever. Um, we got orange honey muffins, which are stupid easy. We did cranberry orange scones, which is a little more prep, but if you're doing it for the day before, for the morning, it took me like the time it took for the oven to preheat for them to be ready to go. And then you bake them, and then they're delicious. Apple cider, you kind of just let it do its thing, and in the morning you strain it, it's done. But that's the quick preview. Let's get on into it. Yeah, I didn't mute. There we go. So this is a chocolate chip cookie recipe. It's not too difficult. You do have to start with some softened butter. And they split it between white sugar and brown sugar, which, if you've ever really gone into cookies, they kind of do two different things. Brown sugar will give you a more toasted cookie, pretty much. There's molasses in it, so it kind of changes how everything goes down, or the end result of it. So I kind of like this recipe because it splits between the two sugars. Sounds good, Goblin. Thank you for coming by. So I use the dark brown. It has a little more molasses in it, and it's just tasty. I like the flavor. And the first step for this is creaming your butter and your sugar. If you don't have an electric mixer for this, it's kind of a workout, I'm not going to lie to you. If you have any way to automate this process, it will make it better. I have done it by hand, and sometimes a workout's what you need. It's not like it's the worst thing. Also, if you have clean countertops, then you can just do this if you mess up with your pores. But you do have to prep a little bit for the recipe because you have to have softened butter. Personally, before I went out to the store, I pulled these out and just left them on the counter. We ran some errands and came back, and the butter was ready. So it's not that bad, but you do have to do it. It does not work with cold butter. It's just not fun. So past that, you do need some flour, obviously. You need 1 egg, baking soda, some vanilla extract, a touch of salt, and your chip of choice. Today I got basic semi-sweet, and then I tried a Heath bit, which is like chocolate and toffee. In the past, this has worked. But this time, the package, so the recipe calls for 6 ounces. And what I did was 8, because that's what the bag came in, and I wasn't about to have just 2 ounces of random filling. Having too much of an extra filling throws everything off. So, just kind of be mindful that with baking, it's not the best idea to go to town and start changing things. It usually doesn't work out the best. If you're doing this by hand, sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that. You do have to be a little more careful with creaming and adding flour and stuff, but with a good stand mixer, you can kind of just put it on high and let it go for most things. If you're doing like a sponge cake or something you have to be really delicate with and can't over whip, it's a little more difficult. But for the most part, you can usually just kind of go to town and just dump everything into an electric mixer and let it go. And it comes out without too much of an issue. So, to the 2 cups of sugar and 1 stick of butter, we're adding 1 1/4 cup of flour with probably my favorite kitchen tool. This little plunger thing is amazing. Um, I've had it for so long, and it's just always so useful. If you ever come across one, I highly recommend it. It has dry and liquid, which if you didn't know, a cup of liquid is not equal to a cup of dry. I don't remember the exact difference, but there is a difference. So if you use a dry measuring cup to measure liquid, it's not the exact same. There is something different to it. So just kind of in the back of your head, keep that in mind. So as you can see with the electric mixer, all I really did is I'm measuring out my dry. You have to make sure to scrape the sides a little bit and make sure that all the sugar gets mixed into the butter. But it really just does its own thing. So yeah, nice and together, I guess is the word. Yeah, a little butter on the sides that didn't really want to get into everything. You just wipe that down where you know it's mixing. Just incorporate it without too much of an issue. So into the creamed sugar and butter, you do 1 egg and a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm not exactly sure what happened to my measuring spoons. I had like a full set, and they have vanished. So by overfilling a 1/4, you pretty much add in a 1/2. So that was my logic. But it adds a nice little flavor. And if you wanted to, you could probably add peppermint and have like a chocolate peppermint cookie. I haven't tried it. If you do try it and it comes out bad, I'm sorry. If it comes out good, let me know. Either way, let me know. I'm kind of curious now that I've said that. But it seems like a fun thing. Another random little thing. Baking soda and baking powder, if you don't bake very often or use them very often, are 2 very different things. Your baking powder, you need an acid to get it going, if I remember right. Oh god, now that I'm saying this, I'm going to be wrong because I haven't investigated this, and I'm going to feel silly. One's a leavening agent on its own, and the other one needs an activator of an acid. Now I'm going to have to double check this. I'm pretty sure that baking soda doesn't need an acid because I don't add an acid to this recipe. So therefore, logically, that makes sense. But let's see if I'm right. So it's the other way around, and I'm wrong completely. Soda needs the activator, and powder doesn't. So now I'm really confused what is added to these cookies. That's an acid that would make it leaven. But whatever, that's the recipe and it works. What's up, Med? How are you doing? We're making cookies and being confused by science, because I thought a thing and it's wrong. But whatever. The recipe still works. It was just me that was wrong. Ooh. What was the meat? Were they veggie kebabs? Just what were the ingredients? Let's just go with that question. So yeah, again, with a stand mixer, even though it says you should probably add it in small bits, you can kind of just do it. Well, you may have noticed that this particular recipe, I don't really edit out too much. It's very straightforward and quick. From start to finish, I think it's like 15 minutes before I get it going. That's fair. Ooh, excuse me. I don't think I've had... Oh, God. I don't remember the last time I had a kebab. It's been a while. There's more good Asian places around here than there are other demographics. So, again, pet owner, no matter what, I could travel 10,000 miles through a wind tunnel and it will still somehow put a single hair in my food no matter how much I try. Meat, lettuce, mayo, chili sauce, raw onion, pretty much that. Okay. Alright. That sounds tasty. I always like using raw onion as an ingredient. There was this one restaurant that basically we went in to steal the recipe as like a company. It was kind of shiesty, but you know I got paid to do it, and I still feel bad about it. But they used an onion and ginger sauce where they just took raw onion and ginger and mixed it, like blended it really, really fine, and then mixed it with some other stuff and made it into a sauce. And because it was raw onion, it had like a weird spice to it. It was really nice. God, that happened so long ago, and I still feel bad about it. Because the guy was in such good faith. And I'm not going to lie, I straight up lied to get the recipe out of him. I was just like, I started dating this new girl, and she has an allergy, and I just want to make sure there's no allergens. Which is a legitimate question. And he came back with the full ingredient list. And I felt terrible. So if you are baking for yourself, you know, use your hands. Clean them, but use your hands. Don't feel bad about it. If it's someone else, I won't tell anyone if you use your hands. But, you know, if any time of the year is appropriate to be a little more handsy with your food, it's during COVID season when no one else is going to be eating your food but you. So to all of this, by the way, that was a half a teaspoon of baking soda. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. What a way. That was so mean. Oh, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, a quarter teaspoon of salt, and that was 1 1/4 cup of flour, and then 6 ounces of chocolate chips. And then you just let it go for a little bit. Make some tasty cookie dough. Personally, I like silicone mats just because I have them. It's really weird how a non-stick thing can get stained when you start using it so many times. Like, it feels like that shouldn't happen. But I use mine for everything. So it's gotten a little, yeah, some flavor on it, you know? Which actually isn't flavor. It's like, I don't even know, it's like carbon in it. Chemistry's weird. Oh, diffusion's a pain. The usual stuff. So, tasty cookies. Towards the end of everything, because I don't show it because I'm a nice person like that. I don't make you watch me just put blobs of cookie dough on a tray forever. I really started using my hands. It's like just sticky enough to kind of almost stick to you, but not really. I didn't even think about it. I was so like in the zone for making the video that I was just like, and I'll just do this, and I didn't even think about eating the cookie dough once. And now I kind of wish I did. Although with the chocolate, I'm lactose intolerant, so with the chocolate chips, it's a little more rough. So I put them in for 12. They ended up being in for closer to 16, I think. I basically just went into the top, looked like that, a nice brown color. The brown sugar adds a nice little bit of color too, so you kind of have to be a little careful. And they start off, I mean, they're cookies, they're a little soft, so you have to be a little careful with how you how you take them off, or else they'll just kind of fall apart. So you just do a magic wave, and then your cookies will come right off. It's amazing. These are still a little warm, but they're definitely still gooey. And then nice. So then you make a whole nother batch and you put in Heath bars. And because you went over on the amount of filling, they do weird things. When I took them off, the insides came out which is what that, yeah, that. I mean, I ate it. It's still good. They are quite tasty. They're so those are a little bit more chewy, and then the chocolate chip has like a crunchy outside and like a soft inside. And what's up, DA? How you doing, man? They are very tasty. So okay, that's one moment. So I tried doing a different thing, and it didn't want to do. As far as putting them all in the same playlist, so that didn't work at all. I don't know why, Muffin. What is... Why? Why? Sorry, it doesn't want to play. So I have everything named by the recipe. And for whatever reason, Muffin 1 does not want to play before Muffin 2. So add all these. Play. Okay, there we go. Okay. And we're back. So, muffin recipe. There we go. That was weird. It wasn't capitalized. I don't know. So this is my orange honey muffin recipe. The orange is the orange juice, and honey is, well, honey. It kind of went a little faster than I meant to. I usually try to hold it up a little bit longer, but whatever. So that is 2/3 of a cup of butter. It had solidified because it's been a little bit and it's a little cold down here. So I just put it in for a brief moment. We got our 2 eggs. We're going to put all of the wet and dry in 2 separate groups. So we'll start with the eggs. Oh, excuse me. And into them goes the honey, the orange juice, the butter, and the vanilla, which are all ingredients that I haven't mentioned yet. But they're there. They exist. The dry is flour, sugar, baking powder, and baking soda. Did I use one hand? I don't remember. I had a buddy who used to be like, I'll do 2 with one hand, and then he would drop one every once in a while. This got to the point where I stopped trying to be fancy. Again, wet and dry are different. Make sure your measuring thing is proper. So you're going to notice a thing. In this whole setup, I have sugar out. It's ready to go. I do not put sugar into this recipe. I messed up. I have no idea how I completely goofed and did not add any sugar to this recipe. And they still taste amazing. It's more of an orange flavor than like a sweet orange flavor, but it's still really good. I fix it in a weird way later towards the end. That isn't until after the scone stuff. I do an icing for it. I won't be cryptic. But it was very awkward. I ate one and I was just like, something's wrong. But anyway. So to actually say the recipe out loud once. The dry ingredients is 2 cups of flour, a 1/4 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons baking powder, and 1 teaspoon baking soda. For your moist, it's a 1/2 cup of orange juice, and 1/2 cup of honey, 2/3 cup butter, and 2 eggs, and 1 teaspoon vanilla. Your wet and dry go into 2 different things. You mix them up real good in their opposite sides, and you mix them together. If you have a mixer, you could just do whatever and mix it all together at once. It doesn't really mess with it too much. I wouldn't say I was in a rush doing this, but I try not to dirty too many things when I make these videos because I'm cooking just through the whole day. And you may notice my kitchen's a little bit messier than it usually is when I do this. So it's been a rough week as far as just life and holidays. My wife's still working and all this other stuff, so I just kind of fell behind on keeping the the kitchen a little clean. So I do not actually do these separate. I just make sure all of my liquids are ready to go, and then put them in there. I want to say I kind of like group it together. Sorry, my dog is asleep behind me. She's like making little sleepy puppy sounds. It smells amazing, by the way. If you've never had like orange juice honey smell, it's magical. So I was trying to get the whisk a little bit more out of the way. By the way, that's what that was. But yeah, this is a fun little recipe. I don't remember where I got it. It's in my personal cookie book thing. That's kind of far in the back. So, judging on where this is in my vague memory, I had this in high school. So I've been making this for a while. Oh god, a good while. I've made it a couple times. Every time it's yet to let down. It's a very enjoyable recipe. I mean, again, this is one of those recipes I don't really edit out. You can see how fast it's going. Like, I always, mentally, I just go, oh, it's going to be a pain to go and cook this because it takes so long. And then you do it once and you're like, oh, that really just took 10 minutes. That wasn't that bad. And this is one of those recipes. Like, it really did not take long to get going. And I don't really make muffins from scratch very often. I'm usually the one who buys the pre-made stuff and just kind of quickly throws it together for like a quick breakfast. But I'm also the one trying to get a kid out of the house by like before I have to go to work time. So it kind of makes a little more sense when you think about it that way. But I will say, doing the cooking stream, definitely a fun excuse to make more fun recipes. I very much enjoyed it. The wife has very much enjoyed it. God, the kid had one of those cookies. First time she's ever had a cookie from us. I'm pretty sure her daycare has given her sweets that we've asked them not to do. And she was so suspicious of me when I gave it to her. And then she just watch a child. Just the joy slowly spread across her face as she's eating a cookie for the first time. Was great. It was definitely one of those proud papa moments. Oh yeah. I don't think I put it in here. No, I didn't. I took it out. That's a personal video on the side. I don't even know. I considered it for a bit, but I know I don't really like hide. Like I mean, my thing is my face. I'm pretty sure my wife's been shown on here. And my kid's way too short to not have her face on it. I try not to show my wife's face just because she works in town. And while only like 2 people kind of know where I am, I think everyone knows where she works as far as like company. So just for her peace of mind, I try not to show her too often. Also, she's way too hot. You guys can't see her now. But anyway. I don't know. I don't really know anyone. I've never really thought about, like, doxing as far as face. At least as hot as Ted. Like, I would say that her hotness is at least Ted Chat levels. Oh, my neck. Man, I slept so stupid last night. I don't even know what happened. Whoa, you okay over there, little dog? What are you growling at? Okay. That was okay, whatever. But I woke up in like pure pain. Magic hand waves fill the muffin tins. Look at that. All nice and pretty. So these bake at 375, just like the cookies. It says 15 to 20. It was probably closer to 25. It probably should have been closer to 20, to like maybe 22. Um, I always like a little bit more color on it, but I'm not gonna lie, the bottom got a little bit toastier than I meant it to. Um, but I mean, they look really good. If they had sugar in them, they would have been perfect like that, without any issue. The lack of sugar still left it pretty good. It kind of had more of like how orange juice, like if you don't get like the really sweet orange juice, is sweet, but it still has um, like the acidic pith kind of like tart almost. Sorry. It was kind of like that. It was very pleasant. It was different. That's probably the word. I don't know. It was an accident, and I've never tasted muffins that like weren't like sweet before, so it kind of threw me off. But it really wasn't that bad. Like if it wasn't for the fact that I already had something planned that ended up being a fix, I would have just left them like this. So, yeah, I do. I tear one open. As I burn myself, fresh out of the oven hot. Oh yeah. Yeah, see a little bit too much on the bottom, but again, even with that, it's still pretty good. And then let's set up the next little bit. We'll do scones. And then I do this. And then these. Boom. Boom. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Alright. And back to it. Boom. What? Okay. That was weird. There we go. Anyway. So start with zesting one orange with a handy dandy microplane. Not the most useful thing, but when you need it, it's my favorite. So after you zest your one whole orange, you then set it aside for other things that we'll do after scone stuff, which is apple cider. But yeah, I like my microplane. It's a nice little thing. I don't always get a chance to really use it, like I was saying, but it's still pretty good. So you may notice, now it is nighttime. This is all prep for the morning. This recipe is hidden and not in my thing, and I need to find it real fast. Boom, found it. So, this particular recipe, because I'm not that familiar with making a lot of scones, if I make one, honestly, it's usually this one. You need to make sure you keep it cold. Do the whole thing. You start with 2 cups sugar. Sorry, I can do this. I can talk and read. You start with 2 cups of flour and a half a cup of sugar, 2.5 teaspoons baking powder, and a half teaspoon salt and orange zest. And all that goes into your bowl. And then you do this weird fun thing where you take a zester or grater, and you make sure children can't make messes. Yep, all the way from the edge. There we go. And you take a grater and you grate a stick of butter, which we'll get to. But you want to make sure that your dry list is nice and free of big chunks. One moment, I'm going to take a beverage moment. Oof, I'm totally drinking the cider I made. It is so good. But yeah, you just kind of make a big old bowl of dry. I don't think I've actually made other scones. Like we usually get like a big old bag of cranberries. So whenever something has the opportunity to do cranberries, I usually just do that. And there's not too many options for not cranberry, or cranberry and orange. Sorry, when you think about like combinations of stuff. So you find a good thing and kind of stick with it. So doing this, I'll probably end up doing a couple different scones over the next couple months to see if anything fun shows up. And oh, right. So it's always important to keep your kitchen relatively organized. I completely lost my salt. It took me almost a minute to find it in this space, and it was where my sugar should have been. I don't know what happened or how it got there, but my salt was hiding, and it hid very, very well for quite a long time. I even go over there and look at, like, basically at it. I looked for this for a lot longer than I thought I did. Come on. Pause, Papa. Yeah, okay. Oh, and the salt magical, yay! Okay. With an adorable child now staring at me. It also helps to hold spoons right side up when you're filling things. So, you want to freeze your butter, because then you can actually grate it. I can't really recommend trying to grate fridge butter, but freezer butter, that's where the action is. This is the one recipe that I did not use my mixer for. You really can't. At least the way that this recipe goes. You can do other things than what I'm going to do. You can get like a fork and mash it in. You can get... Ooh, excuse me. If you want to be really tedious, you can get knives and do little choppies. There's pastry blenders that if you wanted to, you could use. Or you can do this, and if you have a grater, and actually grate your butter. It does a lot of the initial work. Once it gets to, like, you start with this, you don't really need to do the other stuff. It goes very fast with your hands, which is the issue. If you take too long at this step, then your butter will start to melt, and then you don't have solid butter anymore. What you're trying to do is basically spread the butter throughout all of your dry. I don't know where that butter went. I don't think I picked that up. I think that went on the floor. I guess my dog picked it up then, if that's the case. But for this recipe, because of this step, you have to make sure that your batter and every step, everything stays cold. If your butter melts, then you no longer have this nice, delicious situation. You might as well have just poured in melted butter. It makes it a different type of thing. It's one of those like subtle things. Of if you do it a different way, without doing, how to word it. If you don't work the cold butter in and instead you use regular butter that's kind of warm or let it melt, the butter will come out of the, I'm thinking of all these other words, the butter will come out of the matrix of the flour. It becomes very greasy and not tasty. While doing this, it ends up keeping all of the butter within the end product, and it's really, really flavorful. I basically just did this. I picked it up and ran my hands through it and kind of just smooshed it. I don't remember if I show it, but I started putting my hands together and just like rubbing my palms and smashing. I do not make you watch this whole thing, but I wanted to like show enough of it to kind of show that like it'll start working in certain parts, and you have to scoop and find the flour, and it's a completely different color. It's like white versus this yellow. It's kind of showing the difference with the color, but there you go. Wife's helping me out with pressing buttons. So once it's all done, it kind of looks like Parmesan cheese almost. If you squeeze it, it'll hold its shape, and you can just go like that, and it'll crumble right back up. So with this, that took me maybe 3 minutes at most. So because I've been working with my hands this whole time, I need to cool it back down. And because Christmas is around the corner, I have a duck in the only real place I can put this. So I'm now throwing a duck into a cabinet, putting that into the freezer, and I let it sit for about 15 minutes. So after it's been chilling for a bit, pulled it back out, and still looks nice and pretty. So to this, I mixed a half a cup of heavy cream, 1 egg, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and just kind of got it all nice and together. This was very lucky because I only had a teaspoon of vanilla extract left after this, so I kind of just dumped it in. But I would have been very sad if I ran out. Ooh, excuse me. But the recipe is relatively fast. It's like the pieces in between that you have to wait with that make it a little bit more effort, I guess is the way to word it. If you don't want to use heavy whipping cream, by the way, you can use buttermilk. And if you don't want to use buttermilk, what you do is you take your measuring cup, you put in a tablespoon of lemon juice, and then pour in regular milk up until the 1 cup mark. And that's how you make a cup of stand for buttermilk. You have to use it very quickly. Do not put lemon juice into milk and let it sit for long periods. It does not do good things. You should immediately use it. It curdles very fast and very unpleasantly. But it is a perfectly viable stand-in for buttermilk, since usually buttermilk is a little bit more expensive. You know what I mean? But oh, my shoulder, Jesus. So for this, again, the temperature is important. So the cranberries are frozen. It helps keep the batter temperature down, because it's thinking in like 5 dimensions or whatever. It's like playing 6D chess. You just gotta know. I don't know. So they call for a heaping cup. So I basically did this, and whatever managed to sit on it. Oh. Is it like just it's not available in your store, or it's not available in your location of country? Oh, okay. Well then, okay, that's different. I suppose that makes a little bit of sense just because of the process and everything. But yeah, doing a little bit of lemon juice with butter, like that's usually what I do. I almost never buy buttermilk. If a stand-in works perfectly fine, why am I going to spend more money on something because it's what, authentic? Meh. It's all about the flavor. That's why, like, so I don't know how familiar you guys are with it, but there's a chicken place called Cane's around here, in the South in general, that has a amazing chicken sauce that has like numerous different people have recreated it. And actually, they stole it from like Walmart, and they're like, "Oh, it's only 5 ingredients and all this other stuff." And like I was talking to some people who work there, and I'm like, "Well, you can just do this and make the recipe." Well, that's not how you make it. I don't care. If I can put 3 things together that are half the price of your 6 things, then taste the exact same, then what is the difference? Like, if there's no, it's like a whole like 7 different conversations I've had with different people on that topic. It's all kind of coming back now, but like ultimately, it's all about the flavor. If it compromises the recipe in some way, or like the length that it gets held, then that's a little different. But past that, meh. So during all this, I was really just smushing it all together. There's just enough liquid to kind of get it going. If it does not want to stick, you'll kind of know before you get to this point. Just add a little more of the your dairy of choice. Um, it I kind of got lucky in that I didn't, but I it's a little humid down here. I didn't really need to add it. If you're in a drier area, you might need to add that to it. Um, but you know, whatever. That's how you fix it. A little more buttermilk. So again, I'm making this for the next day. So I have a little round thing so I can take it off this plate very easily. Um, in a moment, I realized that a plate that isn't perfectly flat is not the best solution to get. Yeah, there we go. An even scone, but you want to push it down until it's about an even dimension. So what I do is I push in the middle with my palm towards the end, and then use my other hand and kind of flatten it on the corner so it's kind of a sharp edge. Oh goodness, excuse me. um, this worked perfectly fine. I really didn't have any issues with it. It didn't do anything silly. I kept it shaped throughout the night. I did pre-cut it, which I'm about to do. I have to recommend, because of fresh cranberries, that use a sharp knife, which I almost don't do. And then I realize I'm about to make a huge goof. Come on. But these, once you get to this part, if you want, you can actually freeze them. Yeah, I would suggest doing the same kind of thing of pre-cutting it, covering it, putting it into the freezer, and then once it's frozen, putting them into a Ziploc. And then when you do that, you can either like take them out in the fridge the night before, if you know you're only going to eat one or two, or you can add, I want to say it was 5 minutes is what they said, to the recipe, to the cooking time. It should work. So you do an overnight thaw. You can put them on the baking sheet for an hour, or you can add a couple more minutes. Yeah. So this is really more a visual kind of thing, like you want the outside to look a certain way. So as far as adding a couple minutes to it frozen, yeah, personally, if you know you want them in the morning, I say just take them out. But day before, you want to cook them cold again with the whole butter thing. It just makes it better. So, next day, family's awake, and it's time for some breakfast. So, we take out our tasty scones. We have our baking pan all ready. And one of the things that I ended up doing, yeah, making sure the bottom's kind of tucked in so I don't have any thin areas. One of the things I end up doing is brushing a little bit of the cream on top of the scone and sprinkling sugar on it. That's a little bit more of a crunch because the sugar will cook on the top. And right now I'm looking for my little, oh, what is it called? Brush. Aha! Looking for a little brush, which I could not find. So, there's an adorable child eating cookie in the background. Very excited. So I just did this. Just poured a light layer of cream across the top and spread it with paper towel. It worked. Did I waste a little bit? Probably. But it worked. I don't really have plans for the heavy whipping cream. So hopefully that just won't like go bad in my fridge. I'm gonna have to find a recipe for that. What can I cook with that? I'll have to go recipe hunting after this. But yeah, just a little bit of cream, like kind of enough to get it a little sticky. Realize you're out of spoons. Find your spare spoons. Big old chungus. You just do a nice little sprinkly sprinkle. Or however you want to word it. That was a weird thing that just came out of my mouth. But whatever. Um, you don't want to clump it too much. You want a kind of even area. But you know, not everyone's perfect. So, pretty much just putting sugar on it. Um, you may notice that because it's cut like this, there's very sharp edges. I can't really recommend cooking it with sharp edges if you can prevent it. So just kind of smush it. And that way you don't have edges that are baking in like really silly ways. It'll cook a little more even. I guess that's the right way to word it. Also, make sure you cut through it completely, or else you have to do this and reapply cranberries. So this gets baked for 400. Yeah, 400. It went for 24 minutes in my oven, but my oven seems to go a little bit slower than others. I don't know why. It makes me sad, but it does. But yeah. Again, this is maybe the third time I've cooked this recipe, and it's a solid recipe. In the past, I've done it with dried cranberries. It's still very tasty, but now that I've had it with fresh, I can't go back. It was so good. It is so good. Whatever, they're tasty. Um, and freezing them and putting them in there to make sure the toast stays cold, solid. It worked very well. There was no real issues. In the past, I've had problems where it got a little too warm. And, you know, you just can't really come back from that, honestly. Once the butter starts melting out, you're kind of SOL. So yeah, there we go. 24 minutes. Steam to the face. And tasty scones. Sorry about that. So, we remove the scones. I would recommend parchment paper over foil if you don't have a sill mat, or silicone, or whatever they're called, whatever buzzword they've applied to them these days. It's not like super sticky, but it definitely doesn't like coming off the easiest. Past that, I love this recipe. Those will keep for about a week if you don't just leave them out on the counter for the whole time. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, my muffins are a little sugarless. So we're going to repurpose the nonstick mat to catch some drizzles from some icing, which is very basic icing. I may or may not be watching Ted. Who knows? The world's a mystery. I didn't realize I had my phone right there. Anyway, so I used a cup and a half of powdered sugar, and then eyeballed the orange juice. It was probably around a quarter cup of orange juice. Yeah, but that's more or less like making a good icing, a good quick icing. You do powdered sugar and you add a liquid to it. If it's not water, it's some kind of fruit juice. Because both of my things are orange based, orange juice. It tastes amazing, and it works fine. Um, you don't want to do it early. It'll start drying out, like you want it to when everything's on, and make like a hard glaze. But if you put it in too early, it will get a little crunchy, I guess is the word. You don't want to, you can bring, cool phone, thank you. You can bring an older icing back to life by adding more liquid to it, but you run the risk of not whisking it enough, and then you have the chunks from the first batch like in it, so it's not smooth. I mean, it really only matters if you care about how it looks. Like if he's going for flavor and you want to waste stuff, then whatever, do your thing. But if you're trying to be fancy, it's not really the best thing. But yeah, so that was like almost no orange juice into all that sugar, and it just makes such a beautiful creamy sauce. Icing? Is icing a sauce? Anyway, it smells really good, and it tastes really good. Because it's orange juice, it just really tastes like oranges. And because I have a big old bowl, I just do this. And voila, they're iced. Look at that. Like half of it comes off, but since it has little cups, it kind of holds a good bit of it in as well. But I mean, this was my breakfast. Was one of these. It didn't make it the sweetest thing, but sometimes if you want like a low sugar kind of thing, I can recommend doing it this way to leave the sugar out, put it on top. It was not the worst. They look amazing. So now you just do it with the scones, where you dip it in, and then it's done. Tasty scones. It was so awkward doing that. I had to like crouch down. But yeah, they're very tasty. And that was the scones. So now, to the finale of everything, which, looking at the file sizes, shouldn't take too long. And thinking back, where'd my mouse go? Okay, there we go. Thinking back on actually cooking it, making apple cider, which is what we're about to do, is very simple. The hardest part really is the straining. But we'll talk about that as we get to it. So let's jump into it. Why? Okay, there we go. So, we can start with a bunch of apples. That was weird. And some oranges. I've mentioned in the past, but if you have a sticker on food or anything that is ready to be put into your mouth and chewed, it has to be edible. At least in America. I'll word it that way. In America. The ink that it's printed with is food-based. Oh, goodness, excuse me. Food-based dyes. It's food-based adhesives. Like, you can eat a sticker off an apple and it's not an issue. So, you got whole spice, whole allspice, whole nutmeg, some cinnamon sticks, some whole cloves, and some brown sugar, and a whole bunch of apples. So, I had 16 apples and 2 oranges in a big old stock pot. You can do it with one type of apple. I like doing a spread. Get a little more extra flavor. My oranges I like to cut in half so that all the compartments are opened up. I mean, it honestly, it cooks long enough, and what you do to it doesn't really matter, but it's something I did the first time, and I just never stopped. So once all that's in there, you get your measuring thingy and add your brown sugar. Um, so for this, I kind of messed with the recipe. For the 16 apples that I use, I do a cup and a half brown sugar during cooking. Um, I will add more at the end to my personal taste, but starting with that um, is a nice place. It's not bad. I just like it sweeter. So 4 cinnamon sticks. Get my measuring spoon. You want a tablespoon of whole cloves. And, you don't have to be precise with it. Since I did a little bit more of the recipe, I put a touch more. I also like cloves. The allspice. I need to just mute my phone. Come on, phone. Allspice. I didn't have very much left. If you may notice, half of it is whole and half of it is ground. I kind of used some at some point and then put it back in. And you want to use 1 whole nutmeg. Let's drop that in there. The other use of my microplane is right there. There's some allspice, some nutmeg for my eggnogs. But yeah, let's dump it all in. And then brown sugar. So, like I said, the original recipe is for like, I want to say it was 12 apples, 10 or 12 apples, and you use like a half cup. But I have a really big stock pot, and theirs is for a slow cooker. So I kind of just adjust it. It's a very general recipe, honestly. You put in fall seasonings with sugar and apples, and add some oranges. If you don't want the like pith flavor from the oranges, you can peel them and just put the sections in it. That's totally viable. I kind of like it, especially since I end up sweetening it up so much. Adding a little bit of a alternative flavor kind of enhances a lot of different parts of it. This particular recipe, last year I made 3 batches. 2 batches I portioned out and gave to my coworkers. The third one stayed at the house. It's always really weird to see someone's face. It is filled with water. You want to make sure there's enough room because it does come up to a boil. And if you say leave it to have someone who's watching, but they're not really watching and it overflows, that's some sugar water. And it's not really the best thing to have to clean off a counter. So you start on high, you watch it until it boils, or you wait until it overflows like I did, because I wasn't paying attention. And you turn down to low. So about an hour later, your apples are a weird mix. The ones that were in the water are soft, but the ones that are on the top are still hard. So you basically just give it a big stir. The really soft ones you want to kind of mash. And so the flesh of the apples has like, it's almost like a styrofoamy kind of texture. Like it's very aerated. So by smashing it, you get a lot of the air out, and you let it sink. And then all of your uncooked apples, or at least firmer apples, will float up to the top. So you can then find them and then specifically push them so that they're not floating anymore. And then when you have your top layer that's mostly the cooked apples, yeah, so this is me coming back after 45 minutes. I was checking on it every once in a while. I then reset it for, I believe, another hour. Let's see. Nope, another 45. All right, because it did well in 45. That makes sense. Cover it with a thing. Do a magic hand wave. And then all of your apples are cooked. And your oranges. They're in there too, I suppose. So at this point you can see the water is actually boiling. Even at my low, if I cover my pot at low, it will come to a boil. It's a little awkward, but that's what it does. You just do this. You kind of just rotate it and smash everything against the sides. Get all of the air out of it that you can. Break it up. Make sure that all of the juice in the apples can reach the water. Fog up your camera so that you get terrible footage. Yeah, just like this. Come on. There we go. It really doesn't take too long. You want to be a little careful. It is kind of easy to splash yourself right now. I have done it several times. I managed to not do it this time. But that is scalding water. So just be mindful that you're being kind of forceful on the edge of a pot full of just really, really hot liquid. Oh yeah, you gotta get them apple steam facials, you know what I mean? You get the flavor in the skin. So I just put this at the lowest setting, put the lid mostly on it, and let it go the entire night. For me, this is an over the night thing. If you were so inclined, maybe an hour or two after this, you could strain it and it would be equally tasty. I'll be honest, I've never done that. I've always gone through the night. I also cover it more than that. So the more steam you have at the end of the day, the more liquid you lose. So, cider. I'm gonna run and let you stare at this for a second to make sure I turned off my oven. Oh goodness. Well, so you may notice that my oven is on right there, and I'm done with the scones. And my oven was still on. So I'm glad I caught it. But yeah, anyway, you have a second pot. You just pour it out. You do an initial strain. You can do it a couple different ways. There's this with the big strainer that works without issue. I know, Goblin. I'm so bad. I was focused on recording, and my wife was in a rush. She actually ended up being a little late today. So I had something in mind when I put it back in there. Ended up not doing. I actually ended up just throwing all the chunkies away. But I mean, it can be useful. I'm trying to think of something, and nothing's coming to mind. But there are various things you can use for fruit and vegetable pulp. As far as recipes, I just don't cook with it because I don't have pulp very often. So, kind of limits my my opinions on it. Oh man, that got my headache back. That wasn't cool. I'm very frustrated with myself for doing that. Anyway, so you can do this in having a little spider or whatever and smushing it. But I'm gonna be honest. At the end of this, because I'm about to take a break and not make you watch me do this whole thing, I kind of just put it into the strainer, the big one, smushed it against the sides, threw away all the pulp. Yeah. And got that. It's relatively smooth. I cleaned out the big pot. Had my other little strainer. Cleaned it off real fast. Called for assistance. You may notice that now I have something with one hand and a big old pot that needs two hands. So I got the wife to help me. Isn't she beautiful? Anyway. And then this is the part that I'm not sure how it's going to look. Because I realize that where I have to hold this is right at my chest. Let's see. That's not too bad. Just pour it through. You gotta go slow or you cover yourself in orange or apple cider. But you can see there's still a good bit of pulp in there. I have served it like this. It's not the worst. It's actually kind of nice. It's weird to kind of drink. It's like pulpy orange juice. That's probably the best way to think about it. It's not bad, but if you're not ready for like your drink to be a little chunky, it can throw you off. But you know, more fiber, not gonna hurt you. So, get my hidden spoon. There it is. And you just lightly smush it. Get a little more liquid out. And then just throw it away. Because all the flavor's out. It's like the vegetables in a stock, you know? You don't always keep it. Wow. That apple cider kind of messed my stovetop up. So again, it mostly sinks. So towards the end, it starts being a little more troublesome. Yeah, I actually do have lights in my kitchen. I just forget about them sometimes. So I'm trying not to just pour all of that back into the cider that I had already strained. But give it a couple more smushes. All nice and pretty like. And then just toss it. And you kind of just keep repeating. You find a really nice thing. You thank your helper for helping you out. Keep or throw your pulp, depending on your preference and your use. And then when you can have one hand, let's finish it off real fast. So at this point, when it's all ready, you do your last seasoning. I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be exactly what I wanted, so I already have my brown sugar ready. But I add probably a little more than a quarter cup of brown sugar. Like right there, it could have been served, but I like mine sweet. Maybe a third of a cup, something like that. Just dump it all in, give it a good stir. The other thing I like doing is serving it with sweetened cream. We have Coffee Mate, something like that. I show it in a minute. Normally we do a what is it called? Cold Stone does a sweetened cream. I think we put it in tea because we're American and we don't know how to do tea right. But for this, I had French vanilla. International Delight, my bad. But you know, French vanilla and apples. So this is how we do it. I try to save my water bottles for this time of year. So I have a small stockpile. And I just cut my cider with some cream. It's delicious. The alternative to this, that I'm probably going to have in a little bit, because it's past lunchtime now, is you can put this with Bailey's. A little bit of alcoholic cream, you know? Perfectly viable. And I'm hoping quite delicious. And also make sure that when you're doing a taste test, you don't slightly choke yourself. But, yeah. That was it. I feel that most of the recipes that I showed today were very straightforward. The scone was a little bit more tedious and time-consuming. I guess time-consuming is the word. You usually have to keep it cold, so you have to kind of keep stopping. Ooh, excuse me. But the cider, you cut apples and put it with water. Wait, and then you strain it. Cookies and muffins, very easy to mix and just push out real fast. And even the scone, because you have wait time, you can kind of work in small times around other things and get it going that way. So, you know, ooh. I'm glad you guys hung out with me, enjoyed some cooking with me. I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciate you guys coming by. Bye bye.